We need to talk about remakes. Not because remakes are bad, they're not. In fact, some of my favorite gaming experiences in recent years have been remakes and remasters. There are plenty of older games that deserve to be preserved, modernized, and introduced to a new audience. I have absolutely no problem with that. The problem isn't the existence of remakes. The problem is the volume. The problem is what happens when you look around the industry and start noticing that it feels like every major announcement is either a remake, a remaster, a reboot, or another entry in a franchise that's been around for 20 years. At some point, you stop asking, why are there so many remakes? And you end up asking, why aren't there any more new ideas? Because I don't think remakes are the disease. I think they're a symptom of an industry that's become increasingly afraid of risk. Think about how often we hear about game budgets today. $200 million, $300 million, sometimes even more. And whenever those numbers come up, there's this assumption that bigger budgets automatically mean better games. That if you throw enough money at a project, greatness will eventually emerge. But that's clearly not true. We've seen too much evidence to the contrary. Money can buy talent. Money can buy technology. Money can buy marketing. But money cannot guarantee creativity. It cannot guarantee inspiration. It cannot guarantee innovation. And I think that's one of the biggest lessons the industry is learning right now. Because if massive budgets automatically created masterpieces, we wouldn't be seeing so many companies retreat into nostalgia. We wouldn't be seeing so many publishers returning to the same franchises over and over again. We wouldn't be seeing so many remakes. And that's what fascinates me. The remake boom isn't happening because studios suddenly became passionate about preservation. We know that's not true. It's happening because familiar ideas feel safer than new ones. When a game costs hundreds of millions of dollars to make, failure becomes terrifying. Investors become nervous. Executives become cautious. And publishers start looking for guarantees. Eventually, someone looks at a spreadsheet and says, why create something new when we can remake something people already love? From a business perspective, that makes perfect sense. From a creative perspective, it's a little bit depressing because every remake that succeeds reinforces the same lesson. Familiarity is profitable, and that's how industries slowly become trapped in their own history. Now, to be fair, not every remake is unnecessary. Some games genuinely deserve a second life. There are older games that younger audiences would never experience otherwise. There are classics that benefit enormously from modern technology. There are titles that have become difficult to access and deserve preservation. Those remakes serve a purpose. If someone wants to remake Persona 4, for example, I'm there. I'll play it, and I'll probably love it. That game is old enough that a new generation deserves a chance to experience it. But when we're remastering games that came out only a few years ago, something starts to feel strange. That's when it stops feeling like preservation and starts feeling like desperation. And I think that's where a lot of the frustration comes from. because it isn't really about remakes. It's about stagnation. It's about looking at the biggest publishers in the industry and realizing they are increasingly relying on ideas that were already successful 20 years ago. Another Assassin's Creed, another Resident Evil, another God of War, another Spider-Man, another remake, another remaster, another reboot. Eventually, you start wondering, where's the next Assassin's Creed? Where's the next Resident Evils? Where's the next franchises that people will still be talking about 20 years from now? Because every legendary franchise was once a new idea. Every classic was once a risk. Every beloved series was once an unknown quantity. And if the industry becomes too afraid to create new ideas, eventually there won't be anything left to remake except the same handful of franchises forever. That's the real danger. Not that remakes exist, but that they become the primary creative output of the biggest companies in gaming. Because when that happens, the industry starts eating its own tail. It starts feeding on its past instead of building its future. And we've seen this happen before. Movies do it, music does it, television does it. An industry becomes successful, the stakes become higher, the costs become larger, risk becomes unacceptable, and slowly innovation gets replaced by repetition. Not because people stop being creative, but because creativity becomes harder to justify financially. That's why so much of modern AAA gaming feels caught between art and business. On one side, you have developers who want to create exciting new experiences. On the other, you have corporations trying to minimize risk. And when hundreds of millions of dollars are involved, risk usually loses. That's why I don't blame individual developers. I don't even blame remakes themselves. I blame the environment that makes remakes feel like the safest option. Because at the end of the day, I don't think most gamers are tired of remakes. I think they're tired of the popularity of remakes and what it represents. It represents a lack of confidence, a lack of ambition, a lack of belief that something entirely new can succeed. And that's unfortunate, because gaming became the medium it is today precisely because people were willing to take risks. Someone had to create the first Resident Evil. Someone had to create the first Assassin's Creed, the first God of War. Someone had to believe a new idea was worth pursuing. And if we stop creating those kinds of games, then 20 years from now, we'll still be remaking the same franchises. Not because they're the best ideas available, but because we never allowed the next generation of ideas to take their place. That's why remakes concern me. Not because they're bad, because they're telling us something about the state of the industry. And I don't think enough people are listening.